And we are back on the chosen baseball journey with Karim Garcia, Jonathan Hacohen. Karim, welcome back. As promised, today we're going to be talking about the New York Mets, and we got to help figure out their situation because, it never ever fails. Spring training starting and warm-ups are starting, physicals are done, and even before the first pitch is thrown in the opener, somebody's got a tweak, somebody's got an issue, and the New York Mets they're going to shut down Kodai Senga for a little while now. They're
Yeah.
calling this a shoulder strain for an indefinite period. MRI revealed excuse my pronunciation, moderate right posterior capsule strain. If you want to be a baseball fan, you have to be an orthopedic surgeon as well to understand half this stuff. What I'm going to tell you is when you're planning to shut him down from throwing and then try to work up the strength, I only think one thing in my head, Kareem, and I don't want to say it, but this sounds to me we're trying to avoid Tommy John. True or false?
Yes, absolutely. Once you're doing the PRP shots and everything else, and say, I'm going to give you 3 weeks, maybe a month, you're just postponing the inevitable, which is get it done now or get it next year. Why? Because you're getting go sign someone else. This guy is not going to pitch for you this year. And if he does, he's probably injured even worse than what he is right now. And then you're going to have to do the lose time and get it later on the next season.
If I'm a Mets fan, you know what I'm thinking in my head, Kareem?
Here we go
They
again.
uh, Here we go again, but we had okay, now when we had Edwin Diaz, okay, we understand things happen during celebrations, which by the way, if I was Rob Manfred, I would get rid of celebrations altogether. Remember Kendrys Morales? You
Yes.
no more celebrating, no more jumping up and down. Bad things happen. I want you to do a fist bump and that's it. There's no more celebrations. There've been too many injuries from celebration. But we had October, November, December, January, February. What was Kodai Senga doing all this time that he didn't realize his shoulder was fatigued? Like this, something just doesn't seem right to me. And to me, it's if you knew that the shoulder's fatigued in February, wouldn't you have known this in October, November? Why not just go and put this man in Tommy John at that point? But I guess there is a chance that all of a sudden it could just creep up, right? Like it's not necessarily that his shoulder's been feeling this way for several months.
I'm sure it was. But they go with the alternative. They're going with the Japanese style when they put all the little things on your shoulders and they're doing all kinds of stuff. They think they're gonna make your arm, to get a little better or get some strength with towards the end, like you mentioned. If you do it at the end of last year, you might end up going September of this year, maybe trying to start getting throwing or stuff like that. Now you're going to spring training, doing the PRP shots and doing here and there. Now you're losing a year and a half. Now you're losing 24, power 25th, and maybe you start on 2026. So you never know. Now you lose almost 3 years, two and a half.
And it's a very different game over there. I mean, you're talking about a different ball, a different mound, different routines, and they don't throw the same amount of innings. They don't have the same amount of games. They're not on the same five-man rotation. The North American game versus the Japanese game is so different for pitchers that whenever a pitcher comes here for the first year and they put him through a full workout load, no matter if he's 25 or 35, I always think they always tend to have a really good first year, and then are they going to be tired? Is the shoulder be able to handle the workloads? They're not used to the same kind of workload. It's funny because in Japan they don't care to go do warm-ups with 300 pitches, but then they have a six-man rotation and they don't throw the same amount of games. They don't have 162 game seasons. So I'm not kind of surprised in that way that I know the temptation is to want to get the most out of your investment, but maybe the first year when a pitcher, especially a pitcher, is adjusting to a different style of game, maybe go a little slower with him. But with the Mets, they had nothing last year pretty much. They had to rely on him, and he was their best pitcher by far. But this is part of the problem where if you don't adjust them well enough in the first year or so, you can encounter problems in year two, year three. And again, when I'm hearing this, My gut reaction is like the Mets are saying, "Oh, we're still expecting him to make starts this year." If I'm gonna go bet in Vegas right now, I don't think Senga's pitching for the Mets this year.
I don't think so either. I think he's going to have Tommy John surgery at the end of the spring training. And again, you mentioned workload. I play in Japan and I play in Korea for 6 years, two in Japan, four in Korea. And I've seen guys throwing 160 pitches in a game, 9 inning game. And the manager go and works them out after the game for another 200 pitches. Matsusaka, those guys, Yu Darvish, all did the same thing. All these guys had to do surgery when they came to the States, Tommy John surgeries, because they overwork him in Japan. And once you come to the States, the first year is the easy one. But your freshman year, your second year, once you kind of relax instead of continue to do the same work you were doing in Japan to maintain your shoulder, maintain your elbow, you're not doing it because you're adjusting to the American style. And they say, oh, no, relax, you're fine. You don't have to work out as hard as you did over there, but you're throwing more innings over here because you're playing more games. So actually, they have to work even harder than what they did in Japan to adjust to the American baseball, to Major League Baseball in this case. That's what happens on the second year and third year. They need to work actually harder because they throw more games, maybe less pitches, but more games. So you put more strain into your shoulder and your elbow.
I think they're better off pitching less games and more pitches per game, like they were doing in Japan.
Yeah.
But we come to the point we've talked about this in different episodes, but I always think about the Nolan Ryans of this world, right? And you think about how many years Nolan Ryan pitched, and he was never seemingly ever injured. And he always pitched 200, 250 pitches easily. And it just feels like now pitchers are getting babied more and more, and yet they're getting more and more injured than they ever were. And maybe at some point we can look at the Japanese model and saying, hey, they're producing so many great pitchers. Maybe there's something to this. Maybe actually pitching less amount of games and just more pitches each time may not be a bad solution.
Going on a 6 man rotation, it could be. That's what they do in Japan sometimes. You pitch once a week. So you got a lot less games. Plus, you play less games in Japan too. So
What is with the magical 100 pitches? Like, is there something in your arm that the second you hit 100 pitches, it's like, oh, no, got to stop right now? Like, really, like 100 to 110 to 130? Like, when you think about it, in reality, where did they come up with this abstract number? And is that
they
real?
start coming out. I start listening to the 100 magical pitch back in 1997, 1998. They start, oh, the guys are getting hurt. They're throwing over 120 pitches. If you do your workout during spring training or your off season and you can prepare, the guys back on the 70s, 60s, 50s, 80s, they all throw 150 pitches and throw 31 to 35 starts, and they rarely got hurt. Nowadays, they throw less games, less pitches, and they get more hurt. So something's wrong with the 100 to 120. You have to do a little strength into your arm and your pitching arm. You have to be stronger. Now you're doing a lot of weights and stuff like that. Everything changes on your body, but it's the same thing, the strength on your arm.
For those of you that are not the same age as Kareem and I, let's say you're a new baseball fan and you're in your teens or early 20s, do what I did with Kareem. I sent him over a list of all the top pitchers' complete games over the different decades. I sent you, I think, from 1971, 1981, 1991. Folks, there were years that there were 25 complete games. A pitcher had 25 complete games and led the majors. Now, if you pitch three complete games in a season, you're leading the majors by a lot because it's very rare that any pitcher even has a complete game anymore. Kareem, in our day, you would have never heard of this. The way it's gone, and to me, it's like, you know what? Then, if we're gonna go that route, we might as well just use the Cuban style of baseball, where you have the closer as the opener. Oh, but they did that. And I like the approach, but the reason why I think that worked in Cuba was because they actually had a guy who could throw strikes and be a closer who could also then pitch the opener. Here, when you don't have a starter because everybody's injured, they'll take any middle reliever and make him the starter. But I think the secret, if you're not going to have pitchers that pitch complete games and can go past 100 pitches, if you're going to use a real opener, I need a guy who throws 100 plus mile per hour and really start the game effectively.
Yeah. It's another style you never listen to. And it's in a Mexican style. It's called the Peralta style. He was the owner for the Mexico City Tigers. His style was the the first pitcher, starting pitcher, 3 innings, reliever 3 innings, and the closer 3 innings every day. So they got 3, 3, and 3, and he won.
The Peralta style of Mexico.
Peralta style. If you ask in Mexico, anywhere they know baseball in Mexico, you say the Peralta style in Mexico City. That's what it was. 3 innings each pitcher. And the next day, the same thing. You use less pitcher. Of course, some days are going to be good. Some days they're just going to get right. But, it is what it is.
I think if I'm the New York Mets, I may be adopting the Peralta style of baseball now because as it stands right now, if Kodai Senga is out, you're gonna have, are you ready what the rotation is gonna look like? You got Luis Severino,
Mm-hmm.
who's trying to make his comeback after not doing so well with the Yankees. Jose Quintana, who had a good half year there at one point, signed a free agent deal. Last year was injury ridden, not so great. Sean Manaea, who came over from the Giants after opting out of his deal, considering he didn't throw strikes most of the year, but had a good month and a half or so. That is their top three starters, and I have a bunch of question marks after that. This is very, very scary. You have Edwin Diaz coming back. I think based on the nature of his injury, he should be healed. I think it was, the hamstring and leg injury. But
Mm-hmm.
Edwin Diaz, let's say, is back to full force. I don't know what games he's going to be saving for them because Edwin Diaz can pitch 7 innings for them in a game. So he's going to come in and close what games for them. It's going to be a long, long year in Queens, New York with that rotation.
Yep, you mentioned it. And unless Diaz is coming for a 6-out save, and hoping the starter goes 5 and the relievers get 2 innings, he gets the last two. And maybe he saves some games.
I think you need him to get 15 inning saves. That's what I think you need from him. And even you think about the team in general, Pete Alonso's a free agent at the end of the year. There was talk for a while that he might get traded. He's definitely going to test free agency at this point. Let's say he gets another 45, 50 home run season. He may not be back. You got Francisco Lindor, who's been pretty good, but not what they expect him to be. Brandon Nemo, who's steady, but there's a lot of question marks after that. Who's going to be the third baseman? Who's going to be the DH? When you have enough questions like this, and after they traded Scherzer and traded Verlander, unless you're literally going to go sign all four of Scott Boris's free agents, I don't see a lot happening. And you know what? Even you put Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery and Matt Chapman in there, this is still to me a 500 team. I think there's a lot of work to do here.
Well, you think they're going to get to 500 this year
No,
with the pitching that they have? I
hell
don't
no.
think they're going to get to 81 and 81 during the year. I think they're probably going to go like 70 and 82, something like that.
No, but even hypothetically, let's say hypothetically right now they had signed Blake Snell, Matt
Uh-huh.
Chapman, Jordan Montgomery,
Wow.
and JD Martinez. Let's say all four of them are now in that lineup with them. I think at best it's still a 500 team.
Yeah, I think so, because Montgomery going to New York, and it's people that can handle New York, and that's the other thing. Not everyone can play in New York, either the Mets or the Yankees. It's a different vibe over there. You start doing bad, the people start going to boo you. They're gonna let you know how they feel about how much they paid you if you're not doing your job. So you have to have a thick skin for you to be there.
That's why I thought to myself, Blake Snell, Yankees, he has games where he throws 5, 6 walks. I think the Yankees fans would eat him up alive. I don't like the fit whatsoever. And Jordan Montgomery handled himself pretty well. I think he matured quite a bit. So I could see him pitching there, but you can't expect Jordan Montgomery to come in and win 23 games for you. Still the way baseball is set up today, he'll be lucky to win 15 games.
I was gonna
and
say 12 to 15.
yeah, if you're lucky. And the other factor is when you're the Mets, think about this above you when you're looking at the Phillies and the Braves staring down at you. How do you compete with the team with teams like that? You think about the Braves, how stacked they are. We're struggling now to find two or three superstars for the Mets. The Braves have superstars in almost every single position. They are five strong in the rotation, deep bullpen. You look at the Phillies, perennial contenders, not many holes. I look at the Mets, I'm saying, you know what? I have no chance at this. I might as well just blow up the whole thing now. I might as well trade my assets, get a bunch of draft picks, get a bunch of prospects in here and try to get it again where you have five, six prospects coming up at the same time. Because to me, a team like that to be barely 500, there's no point.
No, especially the money that you're spending right now to be a mediocre team. I don't want to say mediocre team, but a 500 team,
Yeah.
for that much money that you spend and you paying luxury tax already last year. I mean, you expect a little more. The fans expect more. And they expected more as soon as Cohen got over there with the team as a new owner. They knew that he was going to spend the money. They expected to win every single time. By, Philadelphia right now, I think is one of the favorites to win the World Series. But you have Atlanta on that division too. So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting, and they're going to be not even a close third. They're going to be a long third. With those two teams in front of them.
And look, you and I, we can close our eyes right now as the opening day is approaching us, and we can say with our eyes closed, we know the Braves are going to make the playoffs. We know the Dodgers are going to make the playoffs. We know the Phillies are going to make the playoffs. The Rangers, the Astros, because you just look at how stacked they are, and even if they have one or two injuries, they're so deep. This is the amount of talent that they got. It's very scary for if you look like a team that who I love, Kareem, watching. I love the Cincinnati Reds. They all of a sudden have all the prospects come up together. You have like 8 or 10 guys come up between starting pitching, relieving, and infield, outfielder. Like they have everything going for them for the Reds from a prospect position. And you're saying, yeah, you know what? In 5 years, they're not gonna be able to afford all these guys. But when you can have all the rookies come up together and gel together, the Reds are and they're in the division, being in the Central there, they can take it. If you get hot and you have enough players to gel together, I like them. But if you put the Reds up in the East against the Braves and the Phillies, they're not winning that division. That's
No,
simple.
absolutely. But they, like you mentioned, got Ellie De La Cruz and all these guys that are coming up right now, and they play a different game. They play the speed game. They're still in bases. They're making the outs. They're exciting to watch. That's exciting to watch those guys because every day, they're doing something different. They're stealing two, three bases in a row. Second, third, maybe going home. Robbing guys from hits. They should have been hits and stuff like that. That's the type of baseball that the fans wants to see, all the time. And as these guys mature more and more, these guys they're gonna be a real contender in their division.
Gonna ask you one final question here, and this one's gonna be a toughie. If you were David Stearns, if you were named Mets GM president, and you have to make the tough decision now, and the owner's coming to you, he's gonna ask you on two names: Pete Alonso, free agent at the end of the year, wants to test free agency. Do you trade him or keep him this season?
I'll trade him and get a couple young guys, 2 to 3 guys, because there's still you're not gonna be able to match the money that he wants for what the team is gonna do in the next few years, unless you spend a lot of money. So might as well get the talent right now, develop the talent, bring it to the major leagues, work with them for a couple of years, and then you might have another Pete Alonso, a couple of them.
I think you can also do an Aroldis Chapman type deal where remember the Yankees traded him to the Cubs, got some really good prospects back, and said to him, "We'll see you in the offseason." And then he just came back. So you can make
Yeah.
a deal like that with Alonso. The one that I think is very tough, and the way I see Edwin Diaz now on the New York Mets, if I had a 2003 Honda Civic, I'm not buying $20,000 rims for my 2003 Honda Civic. And to me, the Mets are 2003 Civic, and he's very fancy rims for that car. And so there are a lot of contenders out there that they're one closer away, or you think about they already have a closer. Look at what the Astros did. The Astros already had a fairly deep pen. All of a sudden, they bring Josh Hader in, and Presley becomes the eighth guy, and the eighth guy slides to the seventh. The Astros now, to me, as long as everybody's healthy there, when you have three closers essentially on your team, you're going to contend. So,
Yeah.
would you keep Edwin Diaz at this point, or would you trade him as well?
No, I will keep them. I mean, you have to keep
You
some of the pieces. You have to keep some of the pieces. Oh, the people, the fans are gonna get on you the whole time. So you cannot trade the whole thing. You cannot trade the whole team. But like they did last year, with Verlander
do.
and Scherzer. But you keep Diaz, and I will say Pete Alonso, which has been a horse work over there for them. A workhorse for them. All the time, home runs, RBIs. I like him a lot, the guy, but for the money, I will bring the prospects right now. And like you mentioned, maybe if he wants to come back to New York, he likes it so much, you make a deal again, but get the prospects right now.
There was a lot of talk in Toronto about the Jays offering Vladdy Guerrero Jr. to the Mets for Alonso. And I would tell you this, if I'm the Jays and I know my window is closing and Vladdy has been inconsistent over the last 3 years, he's been good, but Alonso is money in the bank. I
Mhm.
think I'm taking that 1 year with Alonso. The same way the Raptors took Kawhi Leonard and won the championship. To me, when you have enough people and you're this close to a championship, you always go all in, whatever you got to do. And I would have traded Vladdy Guerrero in a second for Alonso. Alonso in that lineup, in that ballpark, I think that puts him over the edge. Justin Turner's another guy. I like that signing. It's a guy that knows how to win, a guy who's been there. And this is where I still think by the time opening day comes, you're going to see they're going to pick up one more piece. But Alonso on that type of team would be very attractive. The same way I think Diaz would look good on a lot of teams. If I was the GM, I would say, listen, Edwin, I don't know what you're going to be saving here, to be honest. We're not going to have that many opportunities for you. So if a team would give me, let's say, two good prospects and a good starting pitcher, I think I take it in the second. I think there's no choice with it. And we learned with Diaz I have a hard time paying for closers that kind of money because one injury and they're already pitching 50 innings as it is,
Mhm.
and it's a toughie. It's a tough position to pay a lot of money to, and that's why you don't have a lot of very high paid closers. But Josh Hader, and he's a lefty on top of it. I think the Astros will be happy with that trade acquisition.
Yeah. But the Mets already have another Vlad Guerrero in there. They sent the younger brother for Vladimir Guerrero. You saw that, right?
Yes,
So he got
yes.
the Vlad Extra Junior, the third. He's with them already. He signed.
The fact that him when he was signing with the team, he was already wearing the open shirt with the gold chains and the sunglasses. This worries me greatly. This is not what I want to see. But you know what? I think he's gonna love it there. And you know what? Maybe you will see the two Guerrero brothers play together one day. That would be a nice fit. And they also got when they traded away with the Rangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got the other brother there, the Braves outfielder's brother,
Uh,
Acuna's brother, wasn't it?
Acuna, oh yeah, Acuna brother, yeah, 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 yeah.
So, you know what? Second generation, third generation players, they're all over the place. So that was a trade that I think the Mets will be very happy for in the future. But on the same token, Texas won the World Series. So again, you got to go all in. So this is where I think the Mets will be very smart, not going and signing a bunch of pitchers that will win them 5 to 10 games, maybe. I think just take your lumps, do what you can, build up the prospects, and restart it again.
Yep. Yeah, I trade a couple guys over there. I wouldn't trade Diaz because the fans love Diaz and the whole atmosphere that he brings when he goes to
Of
yes, when he
course.
goes to close the games. People loves the stuff. Pete Alonso, another great guy with hits 45, 50 home runs every year, 100 plus RBIs. But you need a little more hitters to back him up. So bring the hitters, send them on his way, get him back on the free agency if you can, and go from there.
I hope as we're ending today's episode that we're wrong about Kodai Senga. I hope that it really is a tired shoulder and that several weeks of rest will come and then he'll come back in May and be stronger than ever. But if I'm going to look at my crystal ball again, I'm sorry, Mets fans, but by the All-Star break, it's going to be TJ. Just you can just read the writing on the wall. But again, you never ever know. I just know generally from my 2 plus decades in covering baseball that when your shoulder's that tired that early and you're shut down, it's inevitable. I remember when Otani there was talk of the tired shoulder, and when they were shutting him down, you could just smell it from a mile away. You start to
Yeah.
learn. But the good news is though, when you get TJ in early enough, Tommy John, and you come back a year later, a lot of pitchers go on to have very good careers even after two Tommy Johns, as we're going to learn next year in 2025 when Otani's back to pitching again, if he's back to pitching. So we'll stay tuned on that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's been Karim Garcia, Jonathan A. Cohen, and we'll be back next week on the Chosen Baseball Journey, the podcast.